Greg's going to share a program that was done for Nuance. He'll talk a little bit about what Nuance was, but it's a account-based program. And so right now, a lot of buzz in the industry about account-based marketing, account-based sales, account-based customer experience. And this particular program, the reason why account-based is getting such attention right now is really its alignment of 3 different functions within an organization: sales, marketing, and also customer experience. And so Greg's going to talk a little bit about this program that was done for Nuance and how that alignment occurred and some of the great results. It's one of the better ABM programs that I've ever seen. So, Greg?
Great. You can hold your applause till the end.
It's all right.
Troy said we were each going to talk for 10 minutes. I'm going to go way past that. So check the batteries in the camera there. Nuance is actually a really interesting company that no one has probably ever heard of. Has anyone here even heard of that? Okay, 1, 2 people. But they are a very large software company headquartered in Burlington, Massachusetts. They've got a huge office up in Seattle. That's a team we primarily work with, their solution marketing group. And they do some interesting technology. It's speech recognition, text-to-speech kind of stuff. The stuff that we're now all very rapidly taking for granted that wasn't even present in our world 5 years ago. You think Alexa, Siri, voice recognition type technology. These guys do a lot of that. So what they do in this particular case and how we support them, this division, has turned those solutions into customer service, customer-facing solutions for companies with big customer service organizations. Think people who make a lot of phone calls to complain about something or have questions about their account, that sort of thing. We all do that. If you've done that with systems that put you in a phone tree and put you on hold or make you press buttons and navigate your way, and you know how annoying that is, their solution is really trying to change the game in that regard. And so if you've had better interactions with, I don't know, an airline or another customer service organization that might have a voice recognition solution, that's what these guys do. So now we'll talk a little bit about what we did for them and really what they needed. So this whole thing started with the challenge that we almost always face, even though you wish it never goes like this. It's a sales team in a bit of a panic. It's an emergency. They're behind on their quota. They're behind on their revenue target, their pipeline. And so what do? They come to marketing and ask for some help. You wish that was something we could have got out in front of 6 months earlier. Almost never goes that way. And so that's how it goes. You take what you get, you try to make the best of it. We, on top of that, our counterparts, our customers on the marketing side made it a little worse by going out and throwing out a huge, scary goal without talking to us, without any research whatsoever, without any data. They promised that we would deliver 15 meetings for the sales team with big companies. These are Fortune 200 accounts that sales had no real inroads with whatsoever. Awesome. It's going to be great. It's going to be great. So we took it on anyway. So what we really focused on from the strategy perspective, and we could talk all day about the nuances of what we did, but there were really just 2 big important things. And any account-based marketing campaign has to pay attention to these, but these are huge. On the account side, we've got to come up with a very, very smart strategy about what accounts we're going to go after. We are not going to cover the world. We don't have the time. We don't have the budget. And that's not what a true account-based marketing campaign is anyway. We've got to be really selective and identify those companies that are a really good fit for their technology, number one. How are we going to do that? So we'll talk a little bit about some of the steps we took to do some research and collaborate to bring our intelligence together in one place so we can make some smart choices about that. And then on the content side, once we know who we want to go after, what are we going to do? What's the messaging strategy? What are we going to say? What do we have to offer of value that's going to get their attention? So we spent a lot of time on those 2 things. On the tactical side, this data collection process up front to really figure out what companies were a good fit, we were disappointed in the starting data that they had. It was bad. There just wasn't much to go on. So we launched immediately into a research phase. We hired a company to go out and and evaluate what were really 300 accounts that were sort of in the ballpark of possibility. And from there, we ended up selecting 50 of those that were going to be a part of this campaign. Those accounts, we collected as much data on them as we could. What technology they had installed, how long they had it installed for, what the expiration date coming up would be, all kinds of other stuff, and we gathered it. We then took that data and combined that with what the sales team knew. And of course, it's not in Salesforce. It's not in their system, never is. The stuff they really know, the really valuable stuff, is right here, and we had to get that out. We then took that information and we created personalized content. And in this particular case, what we did with that data is we turned that into an asset. So the data that we collected to make smart choices about who to target became the actual offer, the asset itself. We created custom reports using that data that we would then leverage to try to get people to pay attention and raise their hand and want to learn more about it. And I'll show you some examples of that here in a moment. And then we executed a playbook of tactics. And so I'll go into some of this in a moment. But you can't just do an email or a direct mail campaign. It's a bunch of things. And so we went from awareness, digital ads that were highly targeted to just these 50 companies that we were going after and specific individuals within those companies, and launched a whole series of highly orchestrated campaigns or programs within a sequence that interspersed things that marketing was doing with what sales was asked to do too. They didn't just get to sit back on the sideline and say, hey, tell us when you've got a business opportunity. They had to participate in the process, and we brought them along and involved them the entire way. Just to geek out here for just a minute, this data analysis that we brought together, one really important element to it was making those insights visible to the whole organization. So we had meetings with the sales team, VPs of sales, and we wanted to share the data we had collected. And then we used that to pull in what they knew, fill in blanks, and we used Tableau visualizations to be able, and this is just a snippet of that. This is real reports that we created, by the way. I didn't like Google image this and just copy and paste this. We built it. Kevin's probably smiling, or maybe he's smirking. I don't have my glasses on right now. But this was really important because this is what allowed them to really cherry pick the 50 accounts that would be really the best fit, the smartest initial accounts to go after that fit what we were offering. We then, like I had said, took all of that data, and this is just one little high-level snapshot of what became a report for each company. So each target account, each of the 50 companies, this happens to be for Ticketmaster, and we shared their results. So companies that said, hey, I'm interested in what you guys know about me and how I compare to my peers, can I get my report? That became kind of the trigger for setting up a meeting to be able to share this with them. And this is just a quick example of what some of that data looked like. So we took their average score for their technology, their system, compared it to their industry group as a benchmark. In this case, Ticketmaster was slightly better, but then we had the little zinger that the highest rated firm that we evaluated was a 4.3. They were a 2.7. That's a huge gap. That became hopefully something that they became curious about. Why are we so far behind these other guys? We want to know what they're doing. So that curiosity is really what drove the engagement here. So as we rolled out these tactics, this playbook, we used tools that are now pretty standard now, but with LinkedIn, we used matched audiences. We want to go after those 50 companies only, nobody else. And within those 50 companies, these are the specific target roles and functions that we want to hit. We don't care about anyone else. They've got to be VPs and directors of customer service or the contact center. Those people are really going to be interested in this. Ad roll, LinkedIn allowed us to get digital ads out there in front of these individuals so that we could sort of have this air cover, we called it, before we did anything else. Let's try to kind of be top of mind. Let's have everywhere they go. These ads are just going to follow them around for a couple of weeks before we did anything else. We also had each of their sales development reps do some LinkedIn stealthing, stalking a little bit. We didn't ask them to do anything like in-mail or reach out and make contact with these people. All we asked was that they viewed them, which is kind of interesting. It's a very, very subtle thing to do, but LinkedIn's kind of weird. It allows you to say, oh wow, somebody's looking at my profile. Who is that? That's all we wanted. They looked at it. It's Nuance. Interesting. They didn't know why. They wouldn't know why until later when they got emails from that person and that company. So we were trying to align all of these tactics so that we could eventually, when we were to send out an email campaign, which I'll get to, they had heard of us. They had seen us. We started to sort of soften the beaches a little bit. And then, like I said earlier, we had sales get in there and follow up. So we sent personalized emails from them. Those that clicked through, raised their hand, showed interest, replied, said, hey, I'm interested, tell me more about this. We had the sales team make a follow-up call, get them on the phone right away. We can't just do all this hard work and then have sales not be there when the time is right. And so that's ultimately what secured meetings. So here's just a few examples. There's a lot more creative that went into this. These are just some highlights. But again, we splattered the web for a month with a lot of ads focused around this content. And then we launched our email campaign. This is about the most boring looking text email that you'll ever see on purpose. We did not want an HTML email. We did not want it to look like it was from marketing or came from some Marketo automated campaign. It had to look like a real person took the time to type this and hit send. And we would get people to reply. So we had to set up aliases for these sales reps because we wanted to be able to track who replied and monitor that. We did. When people would reply, we'd review it. We'd shoot them the hot leads, someone asking for a meeting, they got it. And from all of this effort, here's what we did. Only 50 companies that we're going after. These digital ads that really ran for a period of 2 weeks before our email campaign kicked in generated over 300 clicks to landing pages. Again, those are only from the people we care about. This isn't the whole world saw it and we got only 300 clicks. This is a small little universe generated that. It's about 30% of what our target audience was. So that helped keep the campaign message top of mind. Our email campaign then followed that. We ended up getting 14 people from 10 of those 50 companies to ask to meet to get their report. So that's 20% of this list. It's a lot. 10 of those 14 people were vice presidents or above. We had C-suite, we had CFOs ask for their report. That's really, really hard to do, but it took a lot of focus, a lot of effort. What did we learn from all of that? Well, this initial account research was key. You know, we had to collect as much insight and intelligence about these companies as we could. That's what allowed us to create a personalized report for them that actually had perceived value, so much so that there were multiple responders who asked how much it cost for the report. It doesn't cost anything. We made it for you. We wanted you to raise your hand, and they did, but it had enough perceived value they actually thought we were charging for it. And we weren't. So that was kind of neat. So ultimately, sales was pretty excited about that. We're getting them in the door with companies they were unable to get into on their own. It's the name of the game. That's sales and marketing working together. Even though timelines were really tight, it was a little bit scary. The goal was huge. We actually even missed the goal a little bit, remember? They wanted 15 and we got 14. Nobody cared. Nobody cared because that, I think, still blew away everyone's expectations. So yeah, that's the Nuance ABM story.
Thank you.
Anybody have any questions?
That was awesome.
I guess there's a question.
Like the whole air cover kind of that you added in there, and just getting things even before any sort of outreach happened. It was like you're tracking, stalking, and saying, okay, who's looking at me now? Kind of got me thinking about it, kept me top of mind. So
sure.
Questions, Joe?
Strategic stalking.
Cool.
Yeah, I got it.
Steve.
You talked about you had to draw the information out of the sales team.
Yeah.
What was the technique you
Hypnosis?
Question was, you had to draw information out of the sales team. How did you do that?
Yeah, it's a good question. They weren't offering that at first. It was actually an immediate roadblock. Nope, clammed up, didn't have time, couldn't help you, you're on your own. It wasn't until we gathered our own data from internal systems and then our own research and shared it with them that they started talking. And then they wouldn't stop talking.
Yeah, that's the thing about salespeople.
Yeah.
They don't want to be with you, but corner them for 10 minutes and they'll talk.
That's right.
You just have to get the appointment.
But that was the trigger in that case.
Go ahead.
You're the moderator.
Back.
Kind of going off of that, what was the process like of working collaboratively with the sales department? How did that go and what did you learn?
Yeah, I talked about how it started off as a pressure cooker situation. And they were VP of marketing talking to VP of sales. But we eventually got a couple of sales, project sponsors, people that were nominated to kind of help kick this thing off. And we got to huddle with them, and that got the conversation going. At the end of it, when we had meetings scheduled with some of these accounts, one of those sales people actually asked me to participate in the meeting with the prospect on a call. And it was only because we had done so much work, so much research, that they felt like, hey, I could use you guys on the call in case they have questions and I can't answer them. So that collaboration went from 0 at first to really, really close, actually, really intense. So.
Where were some of the best locations for you to get some of this data that seemed to be so valuable outside of the sales team?
Yeah.
So for others, just locations of where the data came from and where were some of the best to go get it.
Yeah, we started with what they had. So we dug into, in this case, what they had for technology installed data in their Salesforce.com system, their database. Again, that was sparse. And so we had to go out and gather our own, and that was just brute force research. We hired a company to make calls into these targets and talk to people who ran the show there, who had involvement in the technology that they use, and we had a lot of questions, and we gathered as much as we could, and so we really had to fill in most of that on our own.
Good.
Where are you going next? Are you going to keep working on that group of 50 that you identified and keep working on that list? Or are you going to expand?
We're never doing this again. So in this case, sales kind of has the ball and is running with it. What we're really trying to do, and have not been successful, I was talking earlier about this, is a real successful ABM approach is a long game, right? It's not just a one campaign thing. Even if this went for 3 months, you should be doing it all the time, forever. It should never end. They don't quite see that yet. They see it in these little, hey, help us for a little while, and then we'll do our job again. And that's kind of what happens when salespeople get busy with opportunities. They sort of forget the prospecting part of things. So we're working to try to make this an ongoing kind of evergreen campaign. Not quite there.
Last
Good
question. Go, yeah, April.
It was really interesting when you talked about how you had people go in and just look at people's profiles on LinkedIn and just give them that little notification that they were reviewed.
Yeah.
Is there a way to measure if that actually works? Like if it actually sparked interest?
Yeah, so that question has to do with the LinkedIn profile views and how do we know if it worked? We don't know exactly. And the reason is those LinkedIn accounts, the way that social accounts work in general, is that's connected to an individual. We can't see what they know. We can't see who viewed who. But we anecdotally did hear from a couple of those prospects that they noticed that, actually. And so I don't know. It's part of that is just you have to sort of trust that that is having a positive impact. We had a lot of discussion about whether it did or not. I mean, part of me was worried that it would actually be a negative, right? Like, gosh, these people are going to think we're stalking them and think that's a little bit weird. It seems to have been a positive, but yeah, I wish I knew the answer to that.
I think working in your favor is that there's been kind of this annoying trend over the last year or two where those people would invite you to connect with you instead of just reading your profile.
Sure.
And so it's sort of like, oh, thank God they didn't try and connect with you.
Yeah.
They only viewed my profile.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
that could be working in your favor.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good point. Definitely.
Just number of touches. There's a lot of research out there that says it takes 7 touches before somebody actually remembers your name, 12 before you have top of mind. So it sounds like you guys were just trying to do that, is trying to get enough touches in there so they're like, oh, I recognize that brand, that name.
Yep.
Maybe then I'll respond.
That's the hope.
So thank you so much, Greg.
Yeah.